Cool. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, well, we can dive in. Welcome back, everyone. Happy Friday. Nice to see you all again. Oh, let me let in. Okay. So first, quick logistical announcement. Sadly, COVID cases are still on the rise. So we'll be remote next week as well, it looks like. If others would like to be in person together, there is more room in More 302 if people want that. Seemed to work pretty well yesterday when Alex and Allison joined from there, or it's totally fine to keep joining separately if that's more convenient or comfortable for you. Today, our main agenda item is to give each other feedback on the data stories that that you submitted for assignment 2. Your stories were great again, so congrats on a job well done. I also know that some of you haven't submitted your stories yet, and that's fine. Please try to get them in by Sunday night so that we can talk about the remaining stories on Monday. And also, if we have time today, I'm not sure if we will, but if we do have time, then after we talk about the stories that were submitted, I'm happy to have us brainstorm as a class or help get you unstuck if you're looking for some help. All right, so let's dive right into talking about your stories. Would anyone like to go first and have us talk about your submission? All right, Akia. Okay, so your story was about kind of strangers' comments on your Instagram page that you set up for a survey. Was there any like sort of sorry. Do I have a threshold that I'm looking for when I'd be comfortable to come back in person? That's a great question. I'm mostly looking for rates to be comparable to what they've been in previous terms. So I guess, if they were, I don't know of an exact number. I'd like to see them dropping as opposed to increasing by like 5% every week. Yeah. Okay, so but great question. Something I'm actively thinking about, always at the forefront of my mind. Okay, so Instagram comments. Was there any particular types of feedback you'd appreciate from the class, or like things that you wanted to kind of call out as wanting feedback on?
So I just mainly wanted to know if it was like clear, or if there's any additional information I could have included that people were interested in, and like how engaging they found the story to be.
Great. Okay. Seems reasonable. Would anyone else like to comment? Did everyone have a chance to see Akia's story? At least some of you did. Would anyone like to chime in?
I really like the graph you made, and also I did not realize at first, when you click on each cube, they show you the comment of or the message of the person. At first, I thought they were more like quantitative data, but then it has the qualitative part, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. How did you do that, Akia?
I actually made it in Figma. I don't know how to do it really, but I did on Hover. I just made a new screen and changed it, so it's very scrappy, but
That's awesome.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Allison.
Yeah, Rachel, nice job. Definitely thought it was interesting. You always do a good job incorporating humor and personal anecdotes. So nice job again with that. A few like ideas I had were, one, I thought, I don't know if this is easy to change, but if it's possible to add some labels to the graphs, just to make it easier to understand like what they're connected to. Because I think a lot of them didn't have titles or Y or X labels. And also if you could add like a number line or numbers on the Y-axis, like for the number of messages, because I assumed it was like one square is one message, but that may not be correct. And then I guess another question I had was like, what sort of like, I guess, style or format were you going for? Were you going like for, like last time you were kind of like a YouTuber, were you going for something similar?
I wouldn't say I was going for something similar, just mainly, I don't think I did, like I did have trouble like crafting a story around it. It was more so like describing the graph, and I tried to like implement mini stories during like some of the specific comments. So it's, yeah, it's a different different type than last time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess an idea like for the story part could be like maybe for the end, if you're looking for, because at the ending was a little abrupt, maybe you could say like, thanks for watching, and like have like encourage them to actually take your survey. Because I mean, I feel like that would work given, I mean, one, it actually would be helpful for you in real life. And secondly, it kind of goes with the story. And then also thinking in the beginning too, you could always like introduce yourself and like why you're doing this final project, that you're a Dartmouth student, why you decided to use Instagram, like who you want to fill out the survey, that kind of thing.
Thanks, that's a great suggestion.
Anyone else? Yeah, Kareem.
I just wanted to say the so the organization throughout the video was really like, I don't know, for me it kept things very straightforward and was like very easy to follow, but I would maybe suggest including maybe one or two more graphs just so there's like a bit more of like a change between the whole story, so there's like less consistency and you're kind of like following the story like from one place to another.
Yeah, sort of similar to what Funrui was saying. I really liked how you combined that qualitative data and quantitative data. I think that worked really well for you. And I wonder if you might be able to, you said you were kind of wondering where you could build in story, if there was maybe some order that you received these, or probably a few of them built on each other because they're separate DMs, but if just following the thread rather than necessarily like left to right going through some of the key points.
Anyone else?
And that's something else you did well was you like did a good job presenting the data, but you took it a step further and talked about the trends and your takeaways. And I thought that was really nice.
Great. Yeah, so yeah, that's great feedback. So some things I noticed, I thought the kind of introduction using your like screen sharing of your Instagram page, it reminded me of your last video also. I thought that was very effective. I really liked your data visualization, like it looked really nice. And I thought like you did a great job breaking down both the colors and the like groupings of the bars. I thought that was really nicely broken down by like message category. So I thought the categories you chose were effective. And I also really liked how it was interactive. If people are interested in making interactive visualizations, there's a plotting library that we'll learn about called Plotly. And so we'll learn how to make those sorts of visualizations with Python. So that's definitely something that we can you know, examine further, but I liked how you did that in with, I guess, Figma. I didn't know you could do that with Figma, but very cool. I also thought going through the example messages was effective. Something that that might have also worked would be to like dig into, like, just to kind of convey a little bit more depth. I think you could have broken down the messages by category and kind of like showed all the messages in some kind of visualization, and then maybe highlighted a few of them, even if they were the same ones that you ended up highlighting. But that might have given the kind of audience a quick snapshot that they could like kind of, you know, quickly read over or mentally summarize the other messages to kind of get a sense of the data set. Since it's a relatively small data set, it's like possible in this case to visualize it. It's not always the case that will happen, but that might have worked. In general, I totally agree that there were like nice takeaways, and I thought that was effective. I thought one or two, I agreed with Kareem, like one or two more additional graphs could have helped like kind of give a sense of depth a little better. So, you know, something to consider. Overall, very enjoyable and fun topic. And yeah, I liked the humor, and yeah, like you have a nice storytelling style, and I thought it worked well. Nice job overall. Okay. My cat also liked it, if you can hear. I don't know if that's coming through. Who would like to go next? Maybe Frank and then Emily. So Frank's video was on like, you know, gun violence. Frank, is there any particular like specific types of feedback that you're looking for from the class that you'd like to highlight, or just general feedback, or what do you think?
Any feedback's welcome, as always. And I'm particularly interested in how good I'm using the data to support my argument. First, I make a clear argument. Second, does the data, like, I use the data efficiently to support my argument, and are the argument themselves like coherent with the data that I provide? And
Sure.
also,
Yeah.
any other kinds of feedbacks on visualization, any other aspects are welcome.
Great. Allison. Sorry.
Oh,
Fanmarie, sorry. I don't know who went first, but Fanmarie, maybe you could do your
Thank
comment,
you.
and then Allison.
I think the pie charts are really effective, especially with the color. It's really easy to make a comparison. I have another comment, which is the quality, like I don't know how to describe it. The definition, the quality of the video is a little bit low. I don't know why. Maybe like you put it in a zip file. I'm not sure, but actually I cannot see the letters very well, and I cannot really read the graphs.
Yeah, I don't know if that was an artifact of my uploading to YouTube, or, you know, sometimes it takes a few rounds of processing to for the YouTube servers to give the higher resolution option. So that could well have been on me. So I apologize for that.
Maybe I could upload my original videos to the channel and see if that's clear.
Sure.
After this class, of course.
Yeah, and I'm happy to swap out the video on YouTube too. Allison, did you have feedback?
Yeah, first of all, I want to commend you. I saw you turn this in at 4 a.m. So I'm sorry you were up so late, but I commend you for finishing. But I like the video. Some ideas I had were similar to Akia's. I thought it'd be helpful if you put some labels, like you had some numbers like 40,000, 110. It would be helpful if you put like under like the 110 like people shot per day or something, just because like if you miss it when you're saying it, then you don't know what the number is, but I thought the animations were nice. I also thought for the pie chart, it'd be nice if the labels were a little bigger. I thought they were a little hard to read. I thought something else that could be helpful was just like when you define, it would be helpful if you could define what you mean by shooting in the beginning. I don't know if, because I originally thought you were going to be talking about school shootings because of what you talked about last time, but I think you actually meant shootings more broadly, like murder, suicide. So maybe just making that more clear. Then the last thing would be like, maybe this is just me, but I thought the first image was a little jarring and I did not expect this to go into suicide and all these really dark topics. So maybe if there's some way you could tell the viewer in the very beginning, you don't have like a trigger warning, but just like kind of what you're going to be discussing so that they're prepared for it. Because to me, it kind of came out of nowhere. And I kind of wish I had a heads up when I was watching it. And then I guess one other thing I like that you did, I liked the thing at the end. It was like a bit of a disclaimer that like you didn't cover all the factors and like there are other things you'd want to cover. So I thought that was good.
Yeah. Who else? Oh, Kareem.
I think going off Allison's point, at the very beginning when you talked about how you took the feedback from the last video and like you wanted to work on that, I think you could have probably, instead of talking about that, you could give it a bit of like a preview into what you're going to talk about. So like it's not unexpected to the viewer. And I also think that that first part might have not been necessary to your whole story. But other than that, I feel like the graphs were pretty good and the tables as well. Like it was nice to look at them. I was able to see the numbers, but it was actually quite interesting to just track through them.
To follow up on that, I really like the beginning of the video. You talk about like the feedbacks and like kind of like your motivation of making this video. I think it's clear from the beginning of the video that you know who are your audience, which are the class, like the students in this class. And I think personally, I really like the beginning.
Anyone else? Emily.
Yeah, I'm just gonna like echo with what like other people said. Like I really loved how you had the numbers, like those big numbers in the video. I think that was like really effective at emphasizing the data and not presenting it in like an overwhelming way with like a lot going on, but still making it clear like the magnitude of the problem.
Yeah. So I had quite a few comments on this video. So I think one reason is there's just like a lot of content. I think I also thank you, Allison, for reminding me about the posting time. And also related to Allison's video content, sleep is very important. Just, you know, one difference in like 80s level courses than probably your other courses is like, you know, this is, you know, intended to be like a culminating experience course. So the idea is to, you know, get you thinking about, you know, maybe new things or trying to synthesize some ideas from your prior classes. My personal take on that, having, you know, taught this, you know, 80s courses for a few years now, is that, you know, inspiring new thought is typically best accomplished when your stress levels are relatively low. So I would say, if you do encounter a situation in the future where you're like feeling like you need to, like you're not going to finish unless you stay up till like 4 a.m., I would encourage you to just sleep, and then you can hand in your video late and it'll be fine. The only exception to that is like the very last day of class, I need all of your assignments to be handed in because I need to submit your grades by like noon one day following the class. So I need enough time to grade you. But like the deadlines in general for this class are probably a little bit more, or possibly a lot more lax than in your other courses. I really enjoyed the opportunity to view your video for today, but it could also, waited till Monday and that would have been fine. So just for the future, I applaud your effort and also encourage you to, be healthy and make good decisions for you. Okay. But that is not related to the content of your video. So just a message in general. Okay, so yeah, so it seems like there was some mixed feedback from the class about like the kind of feelings about the first 30 seconds. So definitely seemed to work for some students. My take on it as I was viewing those first 30 seconds where you're talking about the last assignment was that it took me a little bit out of the experience of watching this story. Clearly that's not a universal feeling. So I think it's, artistic choice, what you want to take with that. But I personally felt like it might have been more effective just to like start just right away with like diving into your findings. I think it was Allison who mentioned the possibility of adding a trigger warning or something to that effect. I think that's potentially a good idea for sensitive topics. But and then I noticed, so that's like another direction you could have gone with that very first part. I also noticed a few times throughout your narrative, you kind of jumped out of your storyline and started kind of getting meta. Like, I did, however, want to stop here and reach my conclusion. And like you made comments like that, where you're like telling the viewer what you're going to do. So my advice, although again, artistic decision, so it's not required, is I thought it would have been more effective to just like say what you're going to say directly without saying how you're going to say it. Okay, so that's maybe a stylistic thing. I thought your data visualizations were very effective. I thought like the, I guess in roughly chronological order, the like gun death stats and like particularly the rise in gun deaths over time, I thought that was a very effective visualization. When you had the numbers on the screen, a few of the other of your classmates mentioned this too, but you had like deaths per day, per hour, and then something like per minute. I thought that was super effective. The one thing that stood out there is your per minute number was kind of inverted in scale relative to the others, and that made it a little difficult to compare. So I thought like the 13 could have been a 0.07 something to like reflect the number of people shot every minute to like fit in with the other numbers in that page or that slide, I guess. I also liked your pie charts. I thought those were effective. Generally, I mentioned this in my like data visualization lecture that like pie charts are kind of out of style, but I thought they actually worked nicely here. I thought you had like a bar chart comparing gun related deaths with other causes of death, and I thought that was also effective. But I also agreed with others' comments that the text was probably too small. And then as you were kind of unpacking the logic in that section, I noticed the narrative, like for me, I felt the narrative wasn't quite as smooth as in the other parts of the story. I wasn't totally sure why, but it kind of felt more halting or like less confident or less steady or something, just in that one small section. It's also possible that that sense was like I didn't fully agree with or follow some of your logic there. So you mentioned like guns are less deadly than other diseases, like a once in a lifetime global pandemic, which might be true by the numbers. but like, just as you were saying that, I was thinking like gun violence is kind of a choice, like there's human choice involved in that, like either by individuals or by like government leaders. Whereas controlling the spread of disease can be at least somewhat mitigated by like good decisions. But like, I suspect it would be pretty rare for someone to like choose to transmit a disease to someone else, or to like choose or have control over like getting heart disease. Obviously, victims of gun violence are not choosing to be victims. So I'm not saying that's necessarily a choice either, but there's like a human controlling the gun more directly. So it feels more directed to me. And then also, like you mentioned, automobile accidents, and like kind of my reaction there was, cars might be similarly or even more deadly than guns, but like the primary use of cars is transportation, and that's just like often necessary for working and just generally participating in society. Whereas the primary purpose of handguns is to like kill or severely injure people, or to threaten or deter. And so kind of the intended purposes also seemed different. And so that, I guess, offset somewhat the raw numbers for me. And then and then the other piece that kind of I didn't fully follow was your kind of logic around suicide. I think you ended up getting to a place I think I agreed with, but initially when you introduced the suicide stuff, like you kind of introduced a statistic that many people kill themselves with guns, and it seemed like you were saying that was like a reason to not be as afraid of guns. And to me, that just made me think, like, it didn't put me in a mental place of thinking like, oh yeah, more guns would be useful to have around, and like guns are not dangerous. I don't know if that was consistent or conflicting with your message, but I didn't fully like, I don't know, that logic wasn't totally clear to me. I did think it was very effective how you ended the video, kind of essentially saying like, this is a complicated issue and needs further exploration. I thought that was really effective. And then I kind of got how you, like, that last statement helped me to understand some of your logic before that in the video, kind of making it clear that it's not a simple issue, and like there are other factors beyond the like absolute presence or availability of guns like by themselves that contribute to gun violence. So I thought that was nice. And it also, it like reminded me of the kind of infinite depth advice that we had talked about last class. Overall, I think, yeah, so there's a lot there. I think it was effective overall, and yeah, and some potential, things to think about if you so desire.
Thank you for all your comments. Really love them. I'll be honest, I really love them. And I actually have a quick question. So if I want to redo this assignment, say later, maybe after my quizzes of other classes, would you mind adding my response to some of the like counter arguments, like other different viewpoints? Would you mind adding them into my videos to talk to
Oh, like if you add them, or
right.
Like, yeah,
if I add them, if I discuss about them, like to further develop my arguments.
No, that's great. Yeah, and just to be clear, like, you don't have to take my advice here. I'm, I do have a lot of experience with like data science and data storytelling. So like, for what experience is worth, and then like, maybe that's useful. But on the other hand, I'm, I never believe I'm like the ultimate authority on like really anything, but including something really subjective like storytelling. So, what I think is effective doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone. So, you should, if there's some piece of your story, this goes for everyone, that, I give you some feedback and you're like, oh yeah, Jeremy didn't get what I was trying to do there, but he didn't like it, but he just didn't understand. That's totally fine. And that's legitimate. And first of all, you could just choose not to listen to my feedback. And second of all, you could try to clean up your logic or kind of strengthen your argument and, make it more clear, and then, but not change directions. So those are all totally fine.
I'll take it into my.
Okay. All right. Okay, who would like to go next?
I think it's Emily, right?
Oh, sorry. Did you already?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, awesome. So Emily, your story was on food allergies, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Who has what kind of feedback would you like from the class?
Just like general feedback. I know I was trying to mix in a personal story with big statistics about the situation in the US and if how that worked together, and just anything really that people have.
Cool. Who would like to jump in? Allison.
I thought you did a really nice job. I don't know, I just was impressed with the use of the video graphics. I liked that the first kid looked like you. I don't know if that was just a nice coincidence. I liked that when you were mentioning the four types of food allergies that Doug has, you after every image you have, it's right with the voice, which is really cool. I liked that you use the quotes, that transition, use general transitions. I guess a few, these are really minor. I would say for the bar graph, if you could add a title, that would probably be helpful. The 1997 to 2010 graph was a little hard to see, so it might be helpful if you don't have the zoom in effect for that. Another idea I had was for the video of the kid, when she's thinking about the causes of food allergies, there's some white space above her head. So maybe you could add text above there, thinking about I don't know, causes of food allergies ? Or something. But I thought you did a great job. I really liked how you wrapped it up. I liked the ending sentences. So nice job.
Yeah, those are great insights. One comment, since you've mentioned this for a few of the stories, related to axis labels and titles and stuff, there are. So, I mean, when I also teach Psych 11, and one of the things we talk about in Psych 11 is all the rules for making graphs and that sort of thing, and axis labels and titles, those come up. And so in a Psych 11 or Psych 10 sort of situation, those are important. In real life, which only partly overlaps with Psych 11, you can break nearly every rule of data visualization. So titles, axis labels, etc., are not strictly necessary. They're only necessary to the extent that it makes what you're saying clear. But it's not you don't need to include any design decision or plot element that doesn't specifically further your goal. You can, but it's not strictly necessary.
That's helpful to know. I was going to say most of the ones I was saying was really just clarity, but that's good to know, to keep in mind.
Yeah, so for clarity, that would be a good reason. So yeah. Eliza, are you raising your hand?
Yes. So
Okay.
I really appreciated the story and how you connected the personal part as a matter of fact with the graphs, and how actually you could put together short videos and then graph and then an image and then another short video. So it was not boring, it was very unpredictable. And just the only thing maybe sometimes zooming and scrolling is very effective, but sometimes it's a little bit confusing if you want to visualize the sentence directly. And for me, it makes time to wait for the sentence to appear and I lose words. But sometimes it's very effective, sometimes not. Yeah. And also like the two parts, the personal introduction and then the more the bigger overview on US and allergies was very well put together, was cohesive.
Anyone else? Fun Marie, yeah.
Yeah, to add on what Elisa talked about, the zoom in, zoom out, I think that would be the Camburn effects function. I also agree that they worked on some of the photos or even like on some like documents that have like words, sentences in them. So you can kind of see the whole picture. But for something like a screenshot of an article or something like that, I'm not super comfortable with this kind of effect. I just want it to stay there.
Yeah, those are helpful observations. Anyone else? Okay.
Oh, I
sorry,
actually
Alex.
will quickly jump in.
Yeah.
And thinking about the logos of the CDC and like all of the other places that you shared, that was something that I had toyed around with putting in my own story and ended up not going with it. But then seeing yours, I like, that definitely is helpful for providing, there's a real sense of legitimacy, I think, when a place has a logo and then you can include it. So yeah, you made the right call. Nice work.
Yeah, I hadn't like consciously noticed that. I didn't note that down, but I think you're right that like now that you bring that up, Alex, I think it did help drive like trust and believability. There's a lot of kind of emotional and contextual associations with logos and other, I guess really any recognizable image, but that's a great point.
Especially the CDC that we see all over the place now.
That's right. Yeah. So prevalent, well, especially, yeah, lately, but yes. Yeah. So overall, I thought you did a really fantastic job with this story. So like great visualizations. I loved the movement. And also like your tone was like kind of bright, upbeat, steady, really confident. Your story really flowed. I really liked how you integrated your personal story to like help drive connection with the audience. I think that was very effective. I thought your data visualizations with CDC guidance and like counterintuitive results that added good like interest and tension. Exposure versus allergies, kind of going in an unexpected direction. As I was viewing the video, the movement wasn't overwhelming for me, but I do sympathize with a few of the other comments about how like when you're presenting a like graph or like text to be read, I think it's a good point that it might be helpful to like tone down the movement to just have one less thing for people to process. It did look visually pleasing, but I guess this is like a somewhat rare example where the thing that looks most visually pleasing isn't necessarily the easiest to digest. So, something to consider. Overall, I thought this was just super effective, like easy to follow, looked great, captured interest. So really nice job with that.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate all the feedback. That was definitely something like when I was making the video, I was wondering, should I scroll? Should I not scroll? So I really appreciate hearing people's perspectives on that and like when it's good, when it's not good. And I really appreciated Alex's comment too, because I didn't even think about I didn't think about the logo, I guess, is like a data point in itself. Like people have connotations that make it like data. I thought it was like a fact, which I guess is data, but like I wasn't thinking about all those underlying levels. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Cool. Who else would like to go? Allison. Cool. So Allison's story is about high school start times. Was there any feedback that you want to like, or types of feedback that you want to call out as kind of things that would be particularly helpful, or looking for general feedback? Or
Yeah, so I guess mine was like a few seconds over 5 minutes. And I really did actually, I mean, the whole thing started at 10 minutes, so I significantly cut it down. So if there were parts that seemed that I could cut, that would be helpful. And then I guess also just like with some of the visualizations, because I think after I saw a lot of other people's, they had a lot of graphs. And I think for mine, I was more reading facts or more representing numbers. So any feedback in that would be helpful too.
cool. Yeah, that's useful. Who would like to weigh in here?
Yeah, I thought that you did a really solid job with presenting the information, and given that you made such substantial cuts, I was impressed, and knowing how much content there was to begin with, you did a really good job of maintaining a like pretty comfortable speaking speed. You weren't trying to like rush through it and cram as much in as possible, which was a really solid call there. There were a couple of points where it felt like the data that you were sharing wasn't quite as, I don't know, there was a lot of specificity that you included, which I thought was useful in terms of like the big schools that with the GPA increases and kind of breaking it down in a like very data specific way. A lot of the things that I found that I liked a little bit more were the things that were a little bit more kind of story, well, not exactly stories, but like single examples of like this school did this, boom, different situation. So yeah.
So like
overall,
you're saying, Alex, like kind of making it more concrete, or
yeah,
was helpful.
mm-hmm.
Or you connected better with the concrete examples than the like on average this is what happened, or?
Yeah, I think that's how I'm feeling.
Okay.
But overall, I think you chose very well in what like larger problems to focus on within the big problem. So that whole infinite possibilities very much came true.
Cool. Who else? Akia, and then Eliza, and then Fanuri.
I also enjoyed your story, and I liked how the images again matched with what you were saying, and that like sense of motion that came with it. There were a few times when like the visual element was like a little after what you were saying, and I felt like since that delay was there and you would already move on to the next topic, it was kind of a little disorienting in that sense. And then in the ending, it kind of felt a little abrupt before you went into the like share the story, which I thought was a fun way to end.
Were there any like specific parts in terms of the delay that like you're pointing to? So like when I go back, I can look back at those.
I didn't list what the specific things were, but it was times when you would list like 3 things and then the image would show up, and then but you would already be speaking about the next thing. I can go back and find it if that would be helpful.
I think I have a sense where that probably is. So thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I did not notice the timing mismatch, but that's good observation. Yeah, that is generally helpful to sync up. So yeah, cool. That's good advice. I think Eliza, did you have a comment, and then Fanuri?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the hypothetical situation at the beginning, and then how was actually, so probably a little bit the opposite what Alex has said. So there was really data based, and I really like enjoyed having so much specific information. And to me was clear in this way. And at the beginning was different from just presenting data. So you could actually feel as you were in the story. So really liked it.
Different opinions about what, yeah, that's fair. Fanri,
Yeah, I also like the way you present data in not necessarily a graph or a figure, but you use other ways to present them. Like we really know like what is the most important part about this data. And one slide that I love the most would be the balance. Like I think it's 1 hour late school, like the starting time of the school is equal to like the class size is decreased by a third. Like the result would be like the increase in the standardized exam. I think that is really effective. The way you put these two data on a balance.
cool. Anyone else? Emily.
Yeah, something that Alex said, like I think it was Alex that said like how you like chose to focus in on just like one or two main elements of the school starting problem. And then I liked how when you did that, you like showed them on the screen as you like mentioned, I'm going to focus on this, this, and this, like safety. And then you put the safety sign. Like I thought that was an effective way for visualizing your argument.
Cool. Anyone else? All right. So I had a few comments. So overall, I thought this was a super effective story. I really enjoyed this one. I thought the hook at the beginning was really effective. Like there's a harmful thing at your school, like should you stay? The visuals that went along with that, I thought were really effective. I'm always a sucker for like choropleth maps, so I like that. Personal preference, I guess. I liked the like infographic style that you used on a few at a few points to kind of augment your narrative. In general, I think your kind of logical flow was very solid. So, you know, walking through like benefits and costs and then arguing that on balance, the benefits of starting later outweigh the costs. I thought, you know, I think it was a convincing argument to me. In general, your kind of narrative voice, I thought you kept it upbeat and confident, and I thought that worked really well. Now that you mentioned cutting from 10 minutes, like I'm trying to think if I noticed it was fast. It didn't stand out to me as being like overly fast. So I thought, you know, the amount you cut seemed effective. It didn't feel like there were like major gaps or things like that. So I guess I don't have particular advice about further things to cut. I think it worked well together. So I think, you know, this is a case where maybe going slightly over the, 5 minutes is, effective. Yeah, so great job overall. I thought it was like engaging and clear, nicely done.
Thank you. I just had a follow-up question to what Alex's point was. So Alex, I think, so you're referring to like, I mentioned like specifically like in North Carolina, they do this, like are those the side of things you found more helpful versus like the general averages? Or are you referring to something else?
Yeah, I think that was useful. Like I liked especially the story of your school that changed, and I wonder if maybe there was like more that could have been included about the impacts of that, specifically. Hard for me to articulate. I might be able to write it down and send it.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll keep thinking on that.
Yeah, so in general, if any of you for any story, and not just for this assignment, but if you think of things after class, or you want to I post my comments in the stories channel, but if anyone feels like their comments weren't represented in my feedback, or you think of something else, or you come up with a recommendation because you're still thinking about a story, you can add those, and even if they're not followed up on, they're often helpful to, it's helpful to get everyone's feedback because people don't interpret stories in the same way. Yeah. Okay. So probably have time for one or two more, maybe. Yeah. Funnery. Yeah. So, okay. So Funnery's story was about her earring purchases. Is there any kind of feedback that you want to direct the class towards as things you're particularly looking for, thoughts on, or anything you could use help with or thinking about?
I think I have a question, but we can talk about it later. It's more like, I don't know how personal data can make any meaning, not only important for myself, but what's the conclusion I can find from my personal data. So that is, I had a hard time to find a conclusion for my video.
Yeah, that's a really tough question. Yeah, how do you get other people to connect with your personal story, because no one else is you? And then also, especially when it's data driven, which sometimes means it's even drier than a story about some life experience you had that it can be hard.
I'm also just looking for general feedbacks.
Okay. Yeah, so those are, so that's useful to help us focus in. Does anyone have any feedback? Allison.
First of all, nice job. I guess going back to engaging with the audience, I mean, your life story is just really cool. I mean, I've only lived in one state my whole life. You've lived in 3 or 4 different countries. I think maybe in the beginning, if you could maybe say a little bit more about who you are. You later mentioned that you bought some earrings in China, but I know you're from China, but I don't think that was ever stated in the video. And also why did you go to all these different countries? You said you went to college in the US, where'd you go to college? You said you're doing a master's program in the US right now. Where are you doing your master's program? Why are you doing that? Just to kind of connect with the audience and bring it more to life, because the reasons are really cool why you're here. I think also another thing was the earrings you bought. I was kind of earrings range so much in price. So you really are a bargain earring shopper. So maybe explaining what type of earrings you try to look for, what do you value in earrings? Were you looking for them based on price or something else? And where are you buying them? Because I haven't seen earrings usually at that price point. So are you going to thrift stores, chains, flea markets, that kind of thing? But otherwise, nice job.
Who else? Alex. Yes.
I very much agree with Allison in that it would be super cool to include a little bit even more about your life story, because this is really awesome information. And then also I think that your question about wondering what the greater purpose is, or finding the conclusion, that is tricky for these purposes. But I do think that there can be a lot of value in figuring out what sorts of patterns exist in your own life, or I don't know, just the way that you relate to the world. So it's awesome that you decided on this, and the data that you did and the relationships that you found are so fascinating. wouldn't have occurred to me to ever do something like this.
Kareem?
I really enjoyed always having a reference of your earrings, like it was always like very clear what you were talking about and which pair of earrings we were talking about. I think something that could be really cool to include would be, I don't know, if there's a significant pair of earrings that means something to you, or like it's a really cool story, like maybe just like point that one out and say like, oh, like this one's extremely special to me because like this is how I got it and it's a pretty cool story to me. I feel like that would also connect you to the audience because I'm sure you really do like your earrings, and I think that some people do have like some kind of like an emotional connection with some of the material things they own, and so to like express that to your audience would probably make them feel more like attached to the story.
Allison.
Yeah, kind of going off that, I think you did say in the video that like some people take other souvenirs, and this was kind of like your kind of souvenir from other places. So maybe like you could maybe lean a little bit more into that, like the meaning of earrings is really more just a greater symbol of like your travels and like a memento to remember the different times you've had there. Because I guess like the thing with the thrift store in France or marketplace in France was really interesting. I didn't see that coming. So it was more like that experience, I feel like, is what the earrings were more representing. So maybe you could frame it like that. It's like a memento to symbolize different cool experiences you have. Or when you look at those earrings, like that's what you think of.
Kareem, are you raising your hand again, or is that just a no? All right. Okay, so I have some feedback too. So first of all, this was like it was just a really different take than I think I've really ever seen before for this particular assignment. Yeah, really interesting and creative direction. I thought like your visualizations starting out, your visualizations in general were great, but starting out like the jewelry box with the travel paths, I thought that was really nice. About a minute in and kind of carried throughout, your data visualization choices, I thought could benefit from some tweaking. So you kind of chose to show like raw data with like as a table with like highlighted parts of the table. I thought like a bar graph or like some other kind of, data visualization choice might have been easier to process or kind of more impactful. So something to think about. Those paintings that you showed, you made those paintings?
Yes, I made the painting last year.
Wow. Yeah, they were really beautiful, and yeah, you're a talented artist. So yeah, that was pretty neat. So at some points, yeah. So your question about like how to connect a data, like a personal data story to like get it to connect with the audience it's a tricky one. So just some thoughts off the top of my head are like, one way of approaching it is like, I guess there's kind of a negative framing and a positive framing. So by negative framing, I think of like what can be taken away or changed in your story to like drive connection. And then a positive framing would be what can be added to your story to like drive connection. So on the kind of negative side, I think in a few parts, the kind of logic that was motivating your kind of narrative choices, so like why you were breaking down living cost per month and relating them to earring prices, I thought that could use a little more unpacking to help like at least to help me, but maybe in general your audience kind of follow that logical flow. And then similarly with the like flea market story, it seemed like there was something really interesting there with like the, kind of sense of danger and maybe crimes submitted, submitted, thinking of assignments, professor life, the committed around the flea market, like that seemed really interesting and like, you know, like a potentially really promising hook, but it felt as it was told a little disconnected from like the previous and the next things that you, like the next directions you went in the story. Anyways, those are some kind of negative side thoughts. In terms of positive side thoughts, like things to add, I agree that some like context or background or some additional context or background on your like life story, or possibly like interweaving those details more closely with the data aspects, I thought that could potentially help drive connection. And then there's kind of like a overarching question that it's tricky to answer, and I don't have a, like, I don't think there's one right answer, and I don't, well, I have some thoughts, but I don't, yeah, there are many directions you could go with this or take this, but I think like what I took away is what you were getting at is like, how can you quantify with data how meaningful something is, or in your case, like a pair of earrings is. So that seems like a really interesting question. And then part of that is like, what's your measure of importance, and how can you use data to back up what is important to you? I feel like there's like a ton of potential in that idea. And I think, you know, I don't know if this interpretation was correct, but I think where you were going, or my interpretation of where you're going with like cost of living is like, well, like, you know, what is expensive or cheap relative to my other living expenses in this area? Like, how much does it cost to like buy a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread or something like really simple in this area? And what proportion of that of my like weekly groceries bill am I spending on earrings, or like relative to earrings, or like how, like relative to rent? Is this like a day of rent, a month of rent, a week of rent? Like, or, you know, you could kind of relate it to other life measures. And then you could ask like, why are you spending that amount? Like, is it about the, like, so for a flea market purchase, maybe there's like fun in getting a bargain, and like, maybe it's not about the monetary value, but then maybe money isn't the right way to quantify importance, but maybe like the friends that you purchased the earrings with, or that you live near in that city, or like the part of town that it was, like the danger associated with getting the earrings, maybe that's where value comes from. But yeah, in general, like it keeps coming back to me, like, how do you define like things that are personally meaningful with data? And so that's kind of, I think that's a promising direction that, or, you know, one of several promising directions that you know, could potentially tweak things in.
Thank you, everyone. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, great job, everyone, overall. Alex, I'm sorry we didn't get to your story today. Maybe we could talk about your story and the others' stories on Monday. Yeah, and let's see. Yeah, so we'll finish off on Monday. Next week, just to give you a preview, so I guess on Wednesday and Friday next week, we're gonna take a temporary detour away from storytelling by learning how to program in Python. So if you have never programmed before, Wednesday and Friday, and probably the following week, are going to feel like a lot. And if that is you, I would recommend starting to take a look at the Module 3 material. You know, you could start looking through it now, but at least before class on Wednesday, so that our class meeting on Wednesday isn't the first time that you're seeing that material. And the way that I approach teaching programming, and the way that I found that it works best to learn programming is, a lot of hands-on demos and like trying to practice implementing stuff. And so that's going to be our focus. So on Wednesday, we'll have kind of a more structured class where I'll kind of reinforce some of the things that you see in module 3. And then on Friday and then the following week, things will get a lot more free form, and we'll kind of bring, Kareem, did you have another question? And Allison?
Yeah. Are we going to be coding on PyCharm, or are we going to use some other interface?
You're going to use Google Collaboratory. So it's an online, it's totally browser based. So there's nothing to install.
Got it. And can we kind of know what we're going to be using the code for in like the future? Like,
yeah, I mean, you'll be using it for like analyzing data. So like if you want a preview of the particular packages, all the course material is on GitHub. So you can, look through the module 3 material. And then the idea is going to be, okay, bye, Emily. The idea is, you're going to be using Python to analyze data and, wrangle data into convenient formats and then make figures. So data visualizations. Allison, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the date wrong, but on my calendar, I have that we have like a assignment due on the 26th. Is that still happening, or is that getting moved?
That'll be moved. So yeah, our assignment dates are a little bit shifted. So yeah, you can basically ignore the dates on Canvas. So
Okay.
I can update them if it's
Yeah, do you have a
annoying.
sense of then what day it probably would be? Like, do you think it will be sometime next week?
I don't think it will be next week. My guess, you're talking about for assignment 3, I'm guessing it will be due a week from Friday. That would, if going through the material takes about the average amount of time so 2 weeks from today, I would guess.
So the 4th, you think?
If that's the 4th.
February 4th?
Yes, that would be my guess.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Lisa, yes.
I don't know whether it's too late, but since I haven't finished my story, and last time I didn't have the chance to present the idea, can I maybe, I don't know, present it now?
Yeah, sure. Happy to stay after for a few minutes and we can talk about it. If anyone else has to go, you don't have to stick around. All right. Have a good weekend, everyone.